Like I said, it's web-based. This is our landing page. We have a couple options. So the feedback button at the top is really useful if you want to get in contact with us. If you experience any bugs, which you probably will since it's in development, this is the most useful way to get hold of us. We're a team of 4, but every time you hit that submit button, we all get an email. So we can't lie and say we didn't get it because we did. Um, and famous last words, I know. But it doesn't give us any personally identifiable information. All it tells us is the hardware you're using and your browser. So nothing uniquely identifiable, but that is the best way for us to help you. So I urge you to use it if you experience any problems. I will also leave my email, so feel free to contact me directly. So here we have 2 options. We have our blank project, and we can open an existing project. If I click this drop down, you'll see we have these quick starts. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. So moving ahead, clicking on new project, I'm in my setup screen. So these are all just inputs simply as a means to get us started. You can change all of these after the fact. So just off the bat, I'm just going to do Hong Kong. Our dimensions at 1920 by 1080. We actually support up to 4K, but if you try to do anything bigger, we simply won't let you. But we can do different aspect ratios. So it's really what you want to put in. Duration is 450. Again, you can change this after the fact. And then you also have frames per second, frame rate. So hitting start, we're going to get into our main UI. In the middle right here, you'll see our viewport. This is the easiest way to interact with the globe. So if I click and drag, it will move just like so. If I hold down my right click on my mouse, it will allow me to zoom in and out. And at the bottom here, you'll see that this is timeline based. On the bottom left, you'll see all the attributes that we can animate with. So by default, we'll see our camera position is defined by long, lat, and alt. Camera position by pan and tilt. Add attributes is an additional tool that uncovers a couple more things that we can animate with. We'll go into each one of these in detail, but just to give you a quick overview, camera target is an awesome feature. If you're doing a particular story that focuses on a building, a point of interest, particular address, this is the easiest way to create a very professional looking move without doing a lot of work. And all it does is we lock our camera to always look at this point of interest as defined by you. And no matter where you go, how far you move away from it, you will always keep looking at it. Then we have our field of view, which is really nice if you want to create something a little bit more cinematic, wide angled. This is what you want to use. Then we also have time of day. This is an awesome feature, but it's essentially a WebGL shader. And all it does is emulates the sun, and we light up the scene according to where the sun is. But the biggest caveat is it doesn't give us night lights in urban areas. That's definitely the holy grail. But for right now, you can do really awesome time lapses, sunrises, sunset, as you will. Then we also have clouds. These clouds that we have in Earth Studio today are real time. We're actually fetching to the server every 3 hours or so. In time, what we would like to do is to be able to animate them. So if we know a hurricane or a typhoon is forming, we'll be able to see it come into fruition and form. But as of right now, it's really an on and off thing. The reason why we have it is sometimes when you're doing these macro shots, you kind of want to take away some of the detail because it becomes almost a bit too much. So similarly, we let you turn off the ocean typography. And just like that, you're getting less detail so that it makes it way more friendlier for labels. If you want to do any type of annotation, it will just sit on the eye better. I'm going to turn these guys off. And then on our top left, we have our search powered by Maps API. So just like how you would expect Maps to work, this would work the same way. So I'm going to go to Hong Kong, which is where I'm from. So we're going to zoom in and out. As you use Earth Studio, your internet connection speed is probably the biggest factor in your experience of the product. The faster connection speed you have, the better experience it will be. So I know Hong Kong is really nice 3D, so I can zoom all the way down, and if I hold down Alt, I'm able to tilt my camera. So our controls is slightly different from the folks who are used to Earth 7. But what we're trying to do is we're balancing where we can with Earth 7, but also more conventional tools like Premiere, like After Effects.
Can I ask you a question?
Please.
How accurate are the buildings?
The buildings are pretty accurate.
How do you get that data?
So, as far as this 3D aerial imagery that you see, this imagery is actually captured. We commission small planes, aerial, and it's photogrammetry. Yeah.
Is there any data that you can extract, like any geometric characteristics?
So we don't let you export the geometry, unfortunately.
You guys have it.
Yeah. But I'm glad you asked the question. So I'm just going to make a quick animation real quick. This button right here is a keyframe all button. So essentially it locks the values for every single one of these elements when I click them. So that's my first frame. So say I want to punch in a little bit closer, move a little bit further out. I hit my keyframe all button again. I go back. And just like that, I've made essentially my first animation. So I'm just going to complete the flow so you can see just how the process works. So we have this big render button. When you push it, you get into our render preview. So what you see is what you get. We give you a couple additional features if you choose to want to render a part of the sequence as opposed to the whole sequence. You can change that as such in here. If you want to change the dimensions, say if you just want to spit this thing out quick and you don't want to do it in 4K, what we call proxies, you can make this really low res just so that you get it out quicker. And then by default, we watermark our attribution. Our attribution is really defined by two components. The Google Earth logo that you see right then and there, and underneath that is essentially our third-party imagery providers. So based on your zoom level, that second line string will change. So if I'm coming all the way out from space, I could be seeing anything like NASA, Digital Globe, Landsat. It could be a whole host of partners. But Google Earth is always going to be part of that attribution model for us. And if you're just doing this simple zoom right here, this is all aerial, so this is all Google Earth imagery. So even though you're seeing a line string right here, when I actually hit render, it will only just say Google Earth because this is just Google Earth imagery. So right now we're rendering. I've decided I like what my animation that I've made, so I've gone ahead and hit render. And what you're seeing right now is that first frame was all black. And that's always going to be the case because we're loading all the 3D nodes for the very first time. But thereafter, it will chug away pretty quickly. You'll see on the bottom right, it's just a number that's aggregating in frames. So right now, Earth Studio only exports JPEG image sequences. Down the line, out the box, we would very much like to be able to do MP4s, different type of WebMs even. But right now, because we're doing everything inside of Chrome, we are limited. So it is an image sequence.
This is being calculated in your Chrome browser?
Yeah.
Or
So
back at the server.
So basically, for each frame, it's a unique URL, just like in Maps, where it contains all the coordinates. So we're calling to the server for every frame, but then it's saving in your Chrome temporary storage until we've done every single frame, and then we turn it into a zip that ends up in your downloads folder.
Does that end up pretty smooth as a final product, just in terms of like what we're seeing on the news clips?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
you see like chops in between?
So it's kind of it's like a animation flip book, you know. So it'll, once you put it together, say there's I'm going to show you a couple of tools where we can simply, because all it is an image sequence in the video container codec, and that just plays it concurrently so that it just appears like a video. But really, it has the pieces that make up a video. But tricks that people do with television, it's 720p for broadcast. But some of our news partners, and we've told them to render at a higher resolution, even if you know you're going to be at 720p. And if you have time, render it up to 4K, because you'll get much more higher image quality, even if you're shrinking it back down. It's a technique we call super sampling.
So start with highest quality and then play around with it and possibly reduce quality. I guess
I think it's more like render at a high resolution, even if your final resolution is a smaller resolution. Yeah. So we're nearly there, but I just want to show you the whole process so you get what happens. So right now we've rendered every single frame, and we're simply zipping it all together in the zip that's generating. What's nice about this is, you know, if you make a mistake in the first 30 frames, but you're happy with the rest of your animation, you can always just re-render like the first 20 again, and it should fit right in line. So it's a 260 frame sequence, and we're doing it 1920 by 1080, and it should be, yeah, there we go. So when I open my rendered file, it's going to be a zip, and so I unzip it. You'll get this is essentially what every zip will look like. You'll have your footage folder, which has every single frame, and it's literally a flip book. And then you also have an ESP, which is your Earth Studio project file. So it's really nice if, for whatever reason, you forget to save your project. Every time you render, we always give you a local copy. And so when you use I have this one program that we reference in our documentation. It's called SiteRafa, and we also have a different one for PC. But just to show you that for the folks that are less familiar with video production, there are tools out there that make it easier to turn that image sequence into a video. So I'm gonna go pick what I just downloaded. So it essentially loaded my image sequence into this software. I hit export. It's 1920 by 1080. Do MP4. I'm going to put it on my desktop. It's going to be HK test. Turns through pretty quick. So this is without any color correction. This is literally, you saw me just do it now. Except the only difference is, rather than out of the box it being a video, quote unquote, per se, I just used a third party free software to turn it into an image sequence, into a video. And then I just want to show you just a couple more things. So we have these playhead controls. We have full screen. So if you choose, it just makes it a lot easier when you, instead of always rendering everything, we try to make the playback experience better. So you can hopefully get as close to what a final render will look like as you make your animation. So that's full screen. We also have playback controls that you would expect. We have right now it's on loop, so it'll just keep playing over and over and over. I can do single playback, which is self-explanatory. I can do ping pong, which means it'll go right to left, and it'll play backwards. And these are what you think they are. And then we also have this snapshot button. This is a really nice tool if, say, you're working in a team and someone's doing a little bit of location scout. I like this location. I hit this snapshot button. This essentially takes a screenshot of what's in your viewport. So not your whole UI, literally what's in screen right here. And then you get a JPEG. So if I were then to share it with a colleague, they would be able to just drag and drop. And what's really cool is if you change any project settings, it would also get inherited in the rendered frame. We're essentially using the EXIF data to be able to plot you back where the shot was taken. So super nice as far as being able to share locations, especially if you're tackling an animation together with a colleague.
Does it keep all those attributes in the drawers you got there, like the lat long, your choice of clouds, all that?
Yeah, exactly.
It's all in the exit?
It's all in the EXIF. So it's really nice. If I change the time of day and I hit the snapshot button, a snapshot is just one rendered frame versus a rendered sequence. It's the same thing. It's just I rendered my whole sequence. So if I went to my downloads folder and went into my footage folder and picked any frame and dragged and dropped onto the UI, it would take me back there into that location with any project's settings inherited. I'm going to show you. So we have this viewport mask, and sometimes folks like to. So if I'm doing 1920 by 1080, I would turn up my viewport mask if I want to just make sure that I'm always focusing on the composition that I'm most likely to export in. Folks sometimes just like to see that additional landscape, but this is essentially what this feature is for. So when you turn it all the way up, you're essentially just seeing what you're going to get in your final render. And then we also have, I'm going to show you some of these attributes. So, I'm going to restart real quick. I've been running my machine for too long that I think it might be heating up. So going back to Mount Shasta. I'm going to turn on field of view. I'm going to turn on time of day. So field of view is at 20. Let's change it to 60. And immediately I get a super wide angled shot, which is really nice. I'm going to...
The camera's in the same location?
The camera's in the same location, simply just changing our field of view. So I'm going to approach the mountain. So now I'm coming close to it. But what I want to do is, at my end frame, I'm going to change the time of day. And this is a global effect, right? And what's really cool about it is you can, if you know there was a solar eclipse, you can, so I know there was one last year. So 08, 21. it was. This is in Greenwich Mean Time. Yeah, so there it is. So it's really cool as far as, like I said, like when you're up at this view, marble view, the time of day is really effective. You can kind of get these very cinematic gravity-like shots. But if I was to go to Paris, for instance, it's going to be cool for that sunrise and sunset, but I'm not going to ever see lights in buildings. So
But
just
it renders the shadows around the buildings properly?
let's take a look. So let's go to Paris. Sorry, my graphics card is getting fried. So, like in certain areas, you can see the shadows, but like it's not gonna really be too bang for your buck. This feature is really cool, really for more vista landscape shots. But here you can still get very dramatic skyline shots, but it gets pretty dark as you can see on the buildings. And then I'm gonna show you a couple more things. So we have under view, we have available 3D cities. So this is not a layer that you can render out. This is really just a guide. And it gives you a sense just where in the world do we have this 3D coverage. Again, just like Google Earth, you're never going to go somewhere where it's just going to be black. At the bare minimum, you'll have satellite imagery. But what this layer tells you, and all these points regionate as you get closer, these are just areas where we have 3D. So eventually, if I get down low enough, like you're gonna see, like I can see these trees, and even in areas where we don't have aerial, especially like in mountains, in the Alps, we'll still drape satellite imagery over DEM data, so you still get some type of 3D, but it's not going to be in quite the fidelity that you saw in, say, Hong Kong, for example. So I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to also show you just I'm going to show you. So we support KMLs and KMZs. We don't support the full spec right now, and by that I mean we don't support 3D models, we don't support look-at targets, and we don't do polygons. We're hoping by the beginning of next year we'll be able to do the full spec. But as of right now, we do images. We have it in our documentation, but really the best rule of thumb is if you have a KML or a KMZ, just drag it in here, and we will tell you what exactly we support and we don't. So that really the best way to find out is just drag it onto the interface and see what you have.
So you don't support, like, if you have a KML with 3D vector data, how would it be supported? It's just
No.
too-
Yeah. But it would be really cool to be able to drape your own building on top of SketchUp style. But yeah. And then we do have these in-tool library of borders. These are essentially KMLs, but we just serve them for everybody. So we have the countries, and by default we have.
You're gonna tell me you don't have provinces?
Yeah. Maybe coming soon, but as of right now, no. But so you can turn it's really up to you how you select your individual nodes. So if I wanted to just do the United States, you can click on that. We give you some styling controls, so you can change the color. And if I wanted to do the same here, I could hit done. And I can totally animate this as well. And we actually support multiple KMLs. So while we could have a better in-tool library, but at least we give you the ability to render more than one. So please.
Is there any way on the roadmap the possibility to import the KML and to use it as a flying path? Because I think already wrote you about that.
Yeah. That's a very common one. If I have a KML, can I use it as a way to animate my camera? And that's something that we're definitely interested in, especially seeing just the KMLs people have. We are actually developing a plugin right now for After Effects that allows you to animate on and off the line strings, but the next step up would be able to actually use it to animate the camera. But as of right now, it's we don't have that.
Use this file in Premiere Pro software. Can you use this file in Premiere Pro?
Yeah, so right now it's just an image sequence, so you can import it to Premiere Pro, no problem, or After Effects, because at the end of the day, it's we're not giving you these individual layers, we're not giving you geometry, we're just giving you an image. So just to show you, say I wanted to do a zoom from the US and I want to go focus on a particular state. So I now have my US states right underneath my countries. I'm going to uncheck that. I'm going to do California. So now essentially I'm able to kind of see both on the screen. What we're looking to do is to be able to animate opacity, because right now you would still have to go through the pain of rendering multiple passes. So if I wanted to do a zoom out from this view and I don't want to see my California border until I reach a certain zoom level, I would essentially need to render multiple passes. So one pass with just the US border, one pass with just the California, and one pass with nothing at all. So I can fade between them. But down the line, when we have it as an attribute here, we'll be able to do that out of the box. I'm going to show you. So now,
to some extent, since you can do all of those sorts of things in the third party, you're going to have to decide to what extent you duplicate what you can do elsewhere.
You nailed it on the head. It's just because at some point, what we're really trying to do with this tool is it's a content creation tool. And at the end of the day, different people have different pipelines. And we've been working with a lot of news, but also filmmakers. And people use different programs, even from editing software, Final Cut, Premiere, After Effects, C4D, if we're really talking true 3D. So what we're trying to do right now is make sure that you're able to make your camera move in Earth Studio, no problem. But as to where the handshakes are with other products, that's kind of what we're deciding right now. But at the bare minimum, we want to be able to have an in-tool label editor, because right now, if you want to annotate the map, essentially there's really two ways to do that. One is you make a KML and you import it, or B, we let you export the camera data. So if you use a compositing software like After Effects, you'll be able to anchor labels, objects into the scene without worrying it being off perspective. I'm going to show you that, but first I'm going to show you this one feature. So I'm going to go to Manhattan. Okay, I'm going to go to Freedom Tower. So I'm going to right click and I'm going to do my set camera target. So this was the same thing I was telling you about before in the drawer. It's just there's two ways to be able to set it. I can right click in my viewport, or I can go into my attributes list and turn it on myself. So the map on the main viewport on the right always is a clean map. So this top view becomes really useful because you can't render cartographic views. So this is really purely for contextualizing. So you're able to see what street data, road data, but this is emulating what your camera's seeing. So this is what we're looking at, and that target is me setting a camera target. So essentially that's the Freedom Tower. So my camera will always look at that target because I've made that my target. So now I go up here, turn around. What I'm gonna do. So traditionally, if I was to make this by keyframe, I would probably need to make a lot of keyframes. But because I have my camera target, a very finesse looking move, I only really need 2 keyframes. And I'm able to get kind of this like really cinematic drive-by of a shot. And I can add multiple camera targets. So if, say, after coming out here, I want this to be my next camera target, and set that. And then now you'll see that there's another point, and this. So I now turn around. So now, midway through my animation, once I'm done looking at Freedom Tower, so i.e. I passed the set of keyframes, now I'm looking at my next target, which I've listed as a building to the right here.
So in the middle is 2 keyframes?
So this is now 3 set of keyframes. So 1 set, 2 set, my 3rd set. And what's really cool is this is a nice looking move, but it's very linear. So every animation should really start at a certain speed and either accelerate or decelerate. So easing is really what I'm after. So I can, if I select my keyframes and right click, I get this context menu, and this allows me to just apply some very basic easing controls. So typically you ease out and you ease in at the end of an animation, or I can just do auto ease. And I don't know if you can see, but there's these little arrows that are slightly highlighted. This tells me that there's easing applied to these keyframes. So now, if I right click, I'll just do Command A, auto ease. So it went from slow, it sped up a little bit, and now it's easing out. Might feel very subtle. So if I wanted to accentuate that, what I can do is I can go into my motion curves. And so this is where, if you really want that full custom animation, custom camera animation, this is essentially the Bezier curves that we let you tweak. And if you hold down Shift, you can see all of them together. And if you hold down Shift as you drag these handles, we basically constrain you to the axis. So, because if I didn't do that, they can kind of really easily go all over the place. And so if I want to make this even, I'm going to make, so right now it's at 450 frames. I'm going to go down to 200, but I'm going to scale my existing keyframes to the new duration. So now you see that it looks, the graph is still the same, but really it's going to happen a lot quicker because I've made my animation shorter in the number of frames. And so this is really getting into kind of the minutiae of details, because you can typically you would want to be able to maneuver these together at once. It's not really preferable to do them one by one, because then you're probably more likely than not going to introduce jerking, and where the animation doesn't seem that smooth. So you want to make sure that if you're changing something, you're easing with your longitude, you probably want to do it for all of them, so that the change that you're making is happening for all your keyframes. So I'm going to show you a couple more. And sorry guys, I'm just trying to go through a lot of features to give you an idea of what it can do. But we're nearly there. And then afterwards, I would love to get you guys access, and then you can play around with it. But right now, I just want to make sure that you're aware of kind of what the tool can do. So I'm going to show you these quick starts. So Earth Studio, as you saw with the motion curves, clearly built based on animation principles that exist today. But we're also looking to try to make it easier for folks who aren't animators by trade. So we have these quick starts. And so these are common camera moves. We have 5 of them. So zoom to is what you would expect. Orbit, we have point to point, and spiral, which is a corkscrew move. So picture bigger orbit radius, but as you get closer to the ground, they become smaller orbits. And then we have fly to an orbit, a bit of a combo move. So I'll show you that one. So you'll see that, you know, the UI is very much stripped, and it's almost like a wizard. And the reason being is we just want to make this as painless as possible. So your camera controls still stay the same. I can click and drag. I can hold down Alt and tilt the camera. And then once I'm happy with my composition, I can hit the next arrow. And just like that, we'll create this move just based on the inputs you provide. And we give you some sliders, so you can still finesse the shot. You can change which direction you're going, clockwise, anti-clockwise. And you can change the duration. So if you want it really slow. So I'm going to go with 50.
Did you tell it where to start?
Yeah. No, I told it where I was going to end.
So
Yeah.
it's starting from a default.
Yeah, starting from a default. But these quick starts, we are still in very much our first iteration of these. So right now where it stands is they really are quick starts. They just get you into this timeline, but you can't actually go back. So if I were to get back into my quick starts, I can refresh the page, or I can go to my file menu and click from the 5 that we saw earlier. But if I click on one, I'm going to have to start again. So, and then now this is a zoom to, so let's do another one. Let's go to Los Angeles. So it's pretty neat if you just want to make something quick. And this is always like a great way, especially because you can make really nice animations if you play to your strengths as well. For instance, when I started doing this, what I would do is I would make a lot of cuts, and then I would really string them along in the edit, as opposed to trying to make one long continuous shot, which is still possible, but for someone starting out in the tool, it's quite a big ask. So what I definitely recommend is getting familiar with our quick starts, start seeing how they work, because you can click in you can click into the curves, and you can also mess around. So even though you can't get back into the quick start menu, if I wanted to change, okay, I want to go further up, I can change that. Or if I want to change my last frame, I can change that. So it's not like we don't. Once you kind of learn how these quick starts work, you also realize, oh, hey, like maybe that's like a really good way to get started. But then I can change my end frame, my beginning frame. Some people even join quick starts together. So if I were to copy all my keyframes and go to a new window, it will load everything right here. So I could potentially have multiple tabs. I can make one quick start and say make a point to point, a zoom to in one, a point to point in one, and then actually join them together simply by copy and pasting. So that's another. That's actually going to be a feature that we're hoping to. It kind of gave us the inspiration that these quick starts could eventually become blocks, and then movie editor style, we can join them together as opposed to right now manually copying keyframes.
How do you copy a keyframe?
So you can click and drag over them, or you can do Command A if you're on a Mac, or Control C, and then it's just you go to another tab, and we similarly Command Z, undo, redo. If you go to help, our keyboard shortcuts are great. This is really the fastest way. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but I totally suggest learning them. It just makes you just move around so much quicker in the tool. What else do we have? Similarly, if you find a place in Google Maps, go back to Earth Studio, Command V, same thing, we'll be able to plot you there. We've really tried to make it really easy. If you're used to using one program, we really want it to make it easy for you to just jump right into that in Earth Studio. Similarly, if I right click, I can do what's here. I'll try its best to let you know where you're at, but better yet, you can also do copy location URL. So if you send this to a colleague who has access to Earth Studio, they can do Command V. And again, it will take them right then and there. I'm going to show you. And right on on laptops, the maximum viewport you can get, number of viewports you can get is 2. But if you're on a bigger monitor, we actually go up to 4. And just giving you that view from all sorts of angles. But the other 2 views that you can't see right now, those are really those aren't as vivid as these ones. Those are more just showing how the camera looks from the side and from the bottom. Is there any other questions? I know.
Can you how to export the camera data for interfacing with After Effects?
No problem. I'll do it right now. So I'm gonna go to Manhattan. So I'm gonna make an animation real quick. Gonna set this. Okay, pretty happy with this, but I want to add labels. Specifically, I want to name Madison Square Garden, this building behind it, and this building to the side. So I'm going to do these labels in After Effects. So I'm going to export the camera data. So first, I'm going to set my track points. So I have 3D camera data to export. So right click, just like how we right click to set our camera tag, a target, the context menu actually also has this thing called set track point. And it will be represented on the left. I should have picked a better point. It's right on top of my camera target, that red one. So I'm going to name it. I want to add a label here, so I'm going to add another track point, building 1. I'm going to add one more, building 2. So I can see the 3 points corresponding in color to what I see in my overlays panel. I have my animation, so I'm going to hit render. And under advanced, we have this include 3D tracking data. So if you want to get the 3D camera, be sure to click this guy. Then you're going to hit start, and it's going to be the same process, except so I've already rendered that file that you saw me make, and it looks pretty similar, but there's a couple things that's different. So in Earth Studio, you saw in the beginning how we watermark the attribution. We also let you render the map clean, and that's not because we are ready to throw away our attribution model. That's just because for our news partners, especially in certain countries, using the logo is very problematic because it looks like it's sponsorship. So we let them reintroduce it back into the scene with custom styling. So if you choose to render it clean, you're going to get the Google logo as a PNG, and you're also going to get a text file that contains all the third-party image providers, if applicable. We'll put them in here. So expectation would be Google Earth and these two for the shot in question. And then you get the ESP that we saw earlier, but the one that we're getting now is this JSX, which is a script file. So I'm going to go to After Effects. I'm going to go to Script. I'm going to go Run Script. I'm going to go to my JSX. I'm going to open it. Going to make the scale, as you see off the bat, everything's just huge because everything is in real world values. So I'm going to make everything smaller. And so now you see these. Let me play it back for you. So essentially the track points that I added in Studio will come up as text layers, null objects that I can essentially animate with. So for the folks familiar in the room with compositing, this is a really awesome feature because it saves you from having to manually track footage to make sure everything is in line and perspective. We essentially do that for you. So hypothetically, these are labels right now, but I could put an image in there, I can put smoke in there, I can put another building in there, and it would always be in the right perspective.
Including little video?
I could put it depends what you want. Like I can show you an example.
I remember the demo you had this morning where birds flying across.
Yeah, they were using, yeah, exactly. So they basically, we added a whole bunch of track points, and then we just have the flock of bird flying from one to another. Yeah, but it's using the same technique. So yeah, if I just want to change any of this, like I can change the orientation, I can type whatever I want. But this is basically right now our way of getting around being able to label your map. So it's a very powerful feature, but of course, for something this simple, the goal would be to be able to do that in Tools. So this is really more of an advanced technique, really for compositing purposes.
Can you talk about the 360-degree spherical option as well?
Yeah, so right now, okay, so this is a proof of concept that we made, and it shows 360 monoscopic, not stereoscopic, just monoscopic. So this is a linear camera move, just going down Yosemite Valley, and we added these graphics in post. But basically, the workflow was I made the camera move, and then in Earth Studio, we have a function that for every single frame, we can spit out 6 angles so that you can stitch to make your cube. And so right now, we have a way of, for every single frame, to give you your 6 angles, but we need to run a script through command line to be able to stitch them all for you. So the ideal would be, again, out the box, I make my move just like how I normally would, hit that checkbox in my render advance, and then in my zip, I should just get a 360 frame for however many frames. But right now, you get a lot. You get 6 folders, each containing the same amount of frames as the duration of your animation. So it's a lot of images. But this is something that, this example you saw here was all brute force, but we're not too far of being able to have this out of the box. And so this, obviously would work with the YouTube player really well, and you could put on a headset and view this. And we're also looking into being able to, because monoscopic is awesome, but stereoscopic is really what everyone's after. Adding that second eye, so I'm really able to kind of see things in the foreground versus the background. And that's something that we're hoping to have sometime next year.
On a cardboard.
Right now, you can view this on a cardboard. The stereoscopic that I'm referring to would probably be more for the folks that are more about HTC Vive, Oculus, really being able to get that true. But this is really powerful already. For educational purposes, this is great. I guess, what would you guys like now? Would you want to see some examples of maybe what some other partners have done, or would it, go ahead?
Just a quick question: if we plan to use Studio and want to change the attribution to a customized attribution, who should we contact in order to make sure we've done the right?
You can reach out to me or through the feedback button. Again, if whatever you're reintroducing in your custom styling, as long as it reads what it would have read watermarked, you're good to go. And some people, this is also like a rule of thumb. So let me show you an example. So
also if you said something you made with Google Studio, but it wasn't showing throughout the entire shot, would that work as far as attribution goes, or does it have to be showing consistently?
So our policy is on screen attribution. So for however long our map is on screen, we would want the attribution to be visible. But again, it's like, it really kind of depends because, some of our news partners, they're just online, for instance, they're not TVs. So maybe they won't have it in the video, but it's always underneath the video. So like, I don't want to introduce too many tricks, but the point being is we try to like to stick to it, but if you're ever unsure, just reach out. We have a lot of tutorials, everything that I went through today, in greater detail. It's just under help. And we're in the process of localizing this, so it'll be available in multiple languages. But we purposely try to really be as detailed as possible. But for the folks that just want to follow along, I'm included. I'm just more
Hello,
visual. I
and
kinda
welcome
need
to the
see it
Getting Started
happen.
tutorial for Earth Studio. I'm John, and I'm going to be taking you through just a basic
So are there project
overview of the
files, and
more
do they get
options
saved
under
in
these
your
menus,
Google
but
Drive
we're going to
To your
ignore those
folders
for
and all
now
that?
Yeah.
and just create a
Yeah,
new blank
so if you gotta open, what's really nice is you can set up folders, or if you're really messy, you can just have everything aggregating, but you can make folders after the fact. But all this, I definitely recommend. And if you don't save and you do render, you will always have that copy in your zip. But these documentation, these tutorials are definitely worth checking out.